boomer shooters. Is there anything more orgasmic than the experience of a good boomer shooter? No, there's not. High velocity, high impact, and high kill count. And secrets. Can't forget the secrets. It's a system that's worked since 1981, and it's a system that will continue to work until the inevitable heat death of the universe. But now you might be asking, specifically for those who haven't played a boomer shooter before, what about them warranted this prestigious title? Well, let me tell you, it all has to do with a little thing called style. Think Doom, the all-father of FPS titles. I want you to analyze Doom's graphics for a moment and just think to yourself, what stands out? They're a mishmash of real photos, clay figures, and sprites. It shouldn't work, but because it's all under the same graphical haze, it blends and creates this dynamic, distinctive style. Viscerafest, Harot, Dusk, and Ion Fury are all boomer shooters with similarly poignant styles, and it's a facet of the subgenre all of them carry. Every single game I've enjoyed playing has its own dignified style. Newer boomer shooters could have aimed to have their graphics as hyper-realistic as possible, but then it would lose its essence. It'd lose the staple that boomer shooters are known for. The forced graphical restriction serves as a mandate for creativity. And let me tell you, if these games didn't have the flair that they do, no one would give a rat's voluptuous ass about them. I mean, it's what makes these games preeminent. It's what gives these games so much soul. This fact alone is why I still anticipate releases for new boomer shooters, because even though I know the mechanics already, for the most part, I'm going to experience it with an entirely new coat of paint. That being said, one boomer shooter I've played recently is gone and just stolen my heart. Selaco. There are very few games I get vehemently excited about, but this is one of those games. It has been on my radar since 2021. For 3 years, I have been following this game, and as soon as I heard it was entering early access, I just bought a copy within a second, and it was worth every penny. There wasn't one shred of regret upon completing it. In fact, I was upset there wasn't more to play. When a game has got you this good, I think you can discernibly say it's pretty fantastic. But I won't spill on anymore because I've still got to make time for it. I should probably start with the most important aspect, the gameplay. As a young John Carmack said, something game. We're well past the point of knowing what a boomer shooter is and how it plays. Guns, health, shield, secrets, kill a lot, go fast. What else am I missing? Oh yeah, death. Minor tweaks and disparities in gameplay are present between some games, but realistically, why expand past an already perfect system? Selaco, however, is a brimming star. This game is ridiculously simplex, which means complex but simple. On a surface level, the gameplay doesn't go beyond just shooting and killing aliens, which is already fun enough as is, but then you get into the more technical stuff. For one, the AI. There's only one other game I know that has progressive AI, and that's Spear. You see, in Selaco, your enemies start very weak and inept. They're clumsy, they miss, they don't have coordination, they fucking suck. However, they eventually begin developing behaviors. They'll form squads, they'll flush you out of cover, they'll corner you. They get more concentrated, and it's an amazing feature because you constantly have to adapt yourself. One of the problems with Doom is that you can assume cover and just play a match of peekaboo with the demons. That's not an option in Selaco, and while you might feel like it bogs down the gameplay, I assure you, it makes it 100 times more fun. You're constantly making decisions in the heat of the moment. It makes those heavy combat sections feel like you're playing as an action hero. The movement also elevates those moments. You will constantly be sliding and dashing at times, and it's so satisfying to pull off. It also serves as function in combat, because your slide functions as a dropkick, allowing you to...
Looks like you're fucked.
Your slide is more for evasion, but the dropkick never, ever gets old. Movement in old boomer shooters amounted to mostly just strafing, but what I love most about Selaco's movement is that it rewards creativity. You're incentivized to get playful with your movement. It contributes to your gameplay style and how you engage in situations. I genuinely think it's phenomenal. However, just beyond the movement, the gunplay in this game is invigorating. Shooting in this game feels great, like on a level that I've never experienced before. I know I can't do justice just speaking about it, but every weapon feels impactful. Compounded with the animations, it feels like when you're actually putting a slug into a dude, or dumping a mag into someone, you know, you're actually doing so. The guns also don't stay stagnant. There are also modifiers which can vary between turning your rifle into a burst or making turrets that turn juggernauts into slime. These features genuinely make the game endlessly replayable for me because there's so much available to just mess around with, and you certainly won't get to use it all in just one playthrough. It incentivizes you to replay it so you can try different things, and in conjunction with the AI, it makes every playthrough feel like something different. Oh yeah, and something I forgot to mention. Mods. Something I think should be embraced in every game. The importance of mods is massive because they ensure the survival of a game past its prime. Hell, sometimes mods are what incite a game's prime. It's only natural for a game like this to have mods, considering it's running on a modified version of the Doom engine. But also considering Doom's history, mods are the P to Doom's pod, the yin to its yang. They're as important an inclusion as Doom's super shotgun. The base mechanics of this game are enough to keep it fresh for a long time, but mods guarantee that. And if that wasn't enough, there are also randomizers. Not enough enemies to fight in the base game? That's okay. Why not turn every level into a fucking Jet Li film? Or perhaps you'd like to play it as a dungeon crawler where you're constantly swapping out your weapons for better ones. There is just so much to do in this game, but with this section now finished, we can move on. Have you ever played a game with such a brilliant atmosphere that you have to stop for a moment? Like how in Halo ODST, when you're walking through the Mombasa streets, it's almost like you're experiencing it. It's this gripping feeling. To say Selaco has an atmosphere would be putting it lightly. There's something inherently entrancing about this game's attention to detail within its scenery. Everything from the offices to the city streets to even the lower levels is so vibrant and teeming with details. You see people's pictures on the walls. You see boardrooms with messages written on the whiteboard. You walk past neon bar signs and libraries. It builds a sense of longing in every location, as if you're stepping through remnants of a past civilization. It gets more foreboding as you go into the deeper levels as well. Nonetheless though, there's a feeling of this world being left behind in a certain way. Once the combat dies down, you have more time to explore these areas. You're free to develop your own ideas of what happened to the facilities and the environments you traverse, of how things were previously, of the parties within these bars, of who occupied these office spaces. It makes these levels feel so much more tangible. The general look of these places you visit also connects exceptionally well to the themes of the game. You're alone in all of this. No matter where you go, you're the only person occupying that space. Another thing worth noting about the atmosphere in this game is just how emotionally captivating it is. I'm sure there's a game in all of our lives that simply harbors a deep resonation with us, specifically when it comes to its atmosphere, but Selaco feels like it's simultaneously paying homage to games with that same energy whilst also building its own atmosphere. It captures the magic that older titles had. It's like rediscovering that feeling of utter awe again. The sound plays a pivotal role in all of this as well. When you're stepping through the desolate cities, you can hear the sound of gunfire and explosions in the distance, as well as the rain hitting the ground and cars around you. Even as mundane as it might seem to step foot outside, it's made to be significant. It's your chance to breathe and capture the moment before you. The game also plays around with its tone, and that's a lot of the reason why these areas feel as rich as they do. It's a slow unraveling of emotions. Pathfinder Hospital is chaotic. You're thrust into combat almost immediately. It's like a smokescreen of emotion because your only perception of the world around you is to survive this encounter you're having. Upon progressing further into the story, you're given more downtime to generate a comprehensive perspective of what's occurring around you. The settings become more tragic. You begin to weigh in and evaluate. Those sounds of explosions and gunfire below you when you're high up in the Pathfinder Hospital don't lend a candle to what's happening. There's no telling whether or not you're winning. It's this kind of environmental storytelling I appreciate in games, because it allows you to conceive of your own context. That being said, these environments wouldn't be nearly as impactful if not for the music that accompanies them. I don't tend to get caught up in the nitty-gritty details of soundtracks unless I feel like it breaks the mold, and I know that's a rather brazen thing to say, but my definition of what breaks the mold is whether or not I can place my finger on what makes it so good. If you can listen to something and immediately pin down what the aspects are that make it good, it's not breaking the mold. However, if you can't immediately figure out what makes a song or a set of songs good, it breaks the mold. Just about every song in this soundtrack has created this dilemma. Every song feels like it captures the themes of the section it's in. I'm sure that probably sounds ridiculous, but I legitimately cannot stress how complimentary each track is. Especially with the added context of the game, it makes them feel so much more authentic to what's happening around you. It felt like the songs were made alongside the sections. They felt diegetic, as if the world itself was producing the music, and I don't think this line of thought is too far off, as certain sections pay homage to that sensation. Not every track is serene though. A lot of the combat-heavy sections completely switch up the tone. One of my favorite aspects though, which is pretty much universal for every song, is the celestial chimes you hear. There were times I pretty much forgot I was in a space city, but the soundtrack just constantly refreshed the idea in my mind. This game is a marvel in terms of pace switching because the music can go from serious ambiance to dubstep. I haven't really said a whole lot about the style up to this point, mainly because I wanted to talk about the atmosphere and music before talking about the rest of the visuals. But in terms of style, Selaco is magnificent. It is a magnum opus of design. As I mentioned in the beginning regarding Doom's sprites and models, most of Selaco's world is built using 3D models, which I'm sure is obvious to everyone at this point, but the texture and craft of each model feels like it was ripped straight from an old classic. They feel bulky and slightly aged, but it adds so much to the gravitas of this game. It's this blend of cartoony realism. Another thing worth mentioning about the style is the color palette. I think in general, we often associate blue with the future, just given how well it combines with sleek metallic colors, and also the fact that our screens emit blue light. I can go into the semantics of it, but it works well at conveying we are in the future. Likewise, I have never played a game that utilizes the color in the same way that Selaco does. The color palette in this game feels very symbolic. None of the colors feel imposing by any means. They're all very warm and inviting. You're met with a lot of oranges, warm greens, and neon purples. Early in the atmosphere portion, I spoke on how the environments all felt tangible, but the color makes them feel close in a way. Nothing is threatening about these environments you traverse, other than the enemies you fight. Speaking of which, the enemies. I mentioned the enemy AI very briefly in the gameplay section, but beyond just the gameplay system, there is so much attention to detail present in the enemies. There are varying death animations depending on where you shoot them, where they were, and how hard you shot them. There will be moments where you thought you killed them, but you'll see them crawling away from you. Sometimes when you kill one of them near the wall, they'll fall and lean against it. It adds sort of an ounce of life to the enemies. It doesn't make killing them feel like a bad thing, by any means, but it's kind of immersive. One last thing I'll add is the story. The story in a boomer shooter seems like an egregious task because the focus is more on the gameplay, but I cannot express how much Selaco benefits from context. The world is visually rich, but the context of why things are happening around you, how it got to this state, and what it looked like before makes every moment in the game so much more impactful. You uncover it as you go through the game, and I genuinely love this system more than just being told what's happening through a cutscene or forced exposition. I'll admit, I was confused about the story before I eventually found every audio log, but when I did, it made my experience of playing so much more meaningful. Finding out just what the stakes were made every action worth considering. It was like a reward, and it made me realize just how incredible this game's style is. Even though the story may seem cookie cutter, it's the way you went about figuring it out and how it was presented that makes it so good. They say boomer shooters don't need stories, but Selaco is one of the few games that proves how much more profound a game can be with one. I don't think it's unreasonable to say that this might be one of my favorite games of the year, and possibly the best single-player experience I've played in a long time. It's not often that I think about a game this much. Every aspect of this game, from the gameplay to the music to the design, it's all executed to perfection. There isn't one bad thing I have to say about Selaco, and honestly, that doesn't surprise me, given the engine it was developed on. Even 30 years later, Doom's system still finds a way to breathe. This is one of those games you aren't really meant to shake, and it's one that I hope more people decide to pick up because there seriously aren't many like it on the market. It's hard to come by this level of craftsmanship, especially in the period we're in. That isn't to say games aren't being made with quality nowadays, but the passion invested in Selaco is like a coat of paint. It can't be ignored. It took a pretty long while to fully compose everything I wanted to say about this game, and it didn't help that the developers have been updating it every other hour. I'm sure by the time this video has been posted, there will have already been so much more put into the game. This game also stands out to me because I've been waiting for it, and when something you've been waiting for a long while is this good, it's a little difficult to shake that feeling. But I thank you for tuning in. Until next time, Asperish, signing off.